welcome to Wind, Reel, and Print. My name's Ryan.
And you can call me Kevin.
That's right. Today we are doing, a classic in this podcast. One of our favorite segments, you might say.
It is the segment.
The segment of a generation. It is the Letterboxd 250 Shuffle.
Oh, yeah.
Where Kevin takes the Letterboxd 250 and hits shuffle until they get 4 unique movies that we have not talked about specifically in this format.
Yeah.
We watch them and we try to connect the dots and we see what the magic is and what makes a good movie. And it ends up being a show, an episode series that just hits all the buttons that we like so much. Our little triggers.
We've cried
after some baby. Yeah. We'll have to do a one of these days at a certain point, like an episode where we talk about past
episodes.
Past episodes.
Yeah.
Like, how I know you don't watch a lot of TV, but especially the old TV shows, that would always have an episode that would do like a compilation episode where it'd basically be like a character thinking about the past. It was like a way to make a cheap episode in the series and to keep things going. There was always usually one at every certain point.
Yeah.
We'll do that at some point when we're just looking to fill time.
Yeah.
But there's so many movies to watch we could never. But
yeah,
trust me, folks, these are 4 feel-good movies.
Yeah.
You won't feel bad watching any of them. Not a one. All end happy, right?
Yeah.
With a smile.
They make you think about what means or what what you value in life and what means a lot to you and stuff.
I know that what Kevin said sounds sad and sounds a little depressing, but no, it isn't. No, it isn't. It's actually happy.
It's great.
It's great. Here are the 4. And you can judge on your film barometer. Okay, this one's bright. Poster's bright. It's a hot day. This is Do the Right Thing. 1989 Spike. Oh my God, I was going to say Spike Jonze. Which I love that director, but Spike Lee. A movie that we've talked about a number of times. Sure. Like, it is just one that feels vital and important and
still relevant to today.
Totally. And it's really good and it feels original and it has its own energy and language.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of people definitely try to mimic. So we have Do the Right Thing. Then we have Z from 1969, a political thriller film directed by Costa Gavras. Oh, man. Yeah. Oh, man. The key to pronouncing a name that you don't know how to pronounce is just to be confident and not to do what I did, which was quickly say, "Oh, man," at the end. Sorry, we're in a...
You gave it away.
I gave it away. I should have just made a face so only Kevin knew. But this is Z, a 1969 political thriller film directed by Costa Gavras, from a screenplay he wrote with Jorge Saprun, adapted from the 1967 novel by Vasilis Vasilikos.
Wow.
See, I committed to doing all the names.
That rolled right off the tongue.
Yep. Very interesting. I feel like this is our first real political thriller in the top 250. I'm trying to remember if anything else, but it felt unique. It definitely feels different.
Yeah.
So many of these things are dramas that are a lot more. They kind of you kind of sit in it a little bit more. And there aren't as many thrillers that I bet the top 250 is full of it, but there is, feels like our first real thriller in our exploration of the top 250, which was great.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. Then we have, Rocco and His Brothers, a 1960 drama film directed by Luchino Visconti, a insane Italian neorealism, right on the money, a true classic. I had never heard of it before,
Same.
Which is crazy. I think we're going to keep running into those, and then I'll be forever surprised when someone hasn't heard of it. That ends up being like, and that's just the nature of life, is like, what, you haven't seen this? And I was just like that a month ago.
Yeah.
But a really amazing story. Yeah. Kind of an epic, it follows many years in this family's life. And I have a lot of...
It's like 3 hours, right?
It is pretty long. If anything, it's really close. What have we got? 177. Yeah. I mean, you said 3 hours, you were wrong. It's less than 3 hours. But great.
It's close, right? Yeah.
Oh, of course. It's very close. I'm making your chain. I'm making your chain.
I'm
oh,
so
no.
dumb right now.
That's a bad sign, is when Kevin's like, wait, what? Oh, no.
I was like 60 plus 60.
Aw. That's easy math. You got there. I believed in you. And then the last film, and I'm going to keep this going, folks. Kevin's going to laugh.
Keep going.
All Kevin needs to. A Woman Under the Influence. 1974 American drama film written and directed by John Cassavetes, starring Peter Falk and the legendary Gina Rowlands, who just... And I guess the same thing with Rocco and his brothers.
Yeah.
Alain Delon just passed away, and so did Gina Rowlands by the time we're recording this podcast. It happened not too long ago.
Yeah. Within like the same couple weeks, yeah.
Which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And it was...
It's a sign.
Yeah, it was also nice to see Gina Rowlands, and especially her performance in this film. I saw a lot of clips, a lot of people sharing thoughts on it, and I cried watching some. I cried. There was an amazing clip of Peter Falk. I think maybe you sent it to me, but Peter Falk talking to Gina Rowlands, and they were just like having a little interview. Did you send it to me or no? Maybe not.
I don't think so.
Maybe I just discovered that means the algorithm works, folks. I saw exactly what I wanted. But it was just so beautiful. And it seemed like people have always recognized how amazing her performance is and how insane it is.
Yeah.
And that's always nice to know that it got the appreciation it deserved.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm most intimate with Do the Right Thing and A Woman Under the Influence in terms of knowing like backstory and whatever.
Totally.
But Rocco and his brothers and Z were like right up there in terms of impact and that was Rocco and his brothers was infuriating. That movie pissed me the fuck.
I got a text from Kevin like, watch out for the second half or something like that, or get ready or whatever.
I'm not even halfway through. And I've lost my mind.
Yeah. Well, because we're going to talk about all of them.
Yeah.
So let's start with Do the Right Thing. A great film, a great premise. It's one of those like tight. Does it take place all in one day? Or is it just a couple?
I think so, yeah.
The hottest day of the year, which I think is my favorite template for any film. I think it's so good. We all are there. Like it immediately puts us there in like so uncomfortable. Like it just makes us all, it just fires everyone up. Yeah. I think that's just a great setting.
Yeah, heats things up.
Yeah. And we've talked about Lahane before, but obviously there is a lot of similarities to bring. And something that we talked about with Lahane was the energy that Do the Right Thing has.
Yeah.
It is so good. The characterizations are great. It's so unique too, the characters. And I think it's unique in the way that only Spike Lee was able to do at the time, which was to put at the forefront these really like vibrant, exciting characters. And definitely, and just shining a light on his specific slice of New York, the Black experience, and everything. And being in 1989, I mean, it's also when, hip hop is huge at this point, and that plays into it too, which is great. Yeah.
Right.
Samuel L. Jackson being the DJ, which was pretty sweet. That kind of character that's kind of like that omnipresent kind of figure.
Narrator.
Yeah. Narrator. Yeah. That's a better way to put it.
Another like kind of theatrical, kind of black theatrical film.
Yeah.
Would say. Like Shakespearean, dialect or whatever.
Totally. Yeah.
Brecht.
Oh, Brecht.
Yeah. He's a classic Brechtian director.
Yeah. We need to do, I don't want to have to, I still have a hard time wrapping my head around Brecht,
sure.
But I don't want you to have to explain it every time.
Yeah.
Which means we just have to do an episode on it so I can get over this. Sure, and I could just read more about it. It's so funny that was Brechtian and that approach was not taught to me in school.
Yeah.
In film school, but
it wasn't taught to me either.
Oh, okay. So that's just something, but I hear it everywhere now.
Independent thing. Yeah.
Through you.
It's like it's definitely something I feel like influences stuff as much as Shakespeare does in that space. Like everything that we kind of consider meta is like more or less Brecht or like breaking the fourth wall or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's all taken from that kind of theory and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
is Godard.
Godard.
Definitely.
Yeah. Viva de Vie is like the Brecht film for him. But
Brecht.
He's like based his theory off of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm kind of understanding.
Yeah. You kind of get it.
Yeah. Is there something to like knowing you're in a movie or knowing it's a movie? I mean, not necessarily like the characters themselves, but like taking advantage of the form to like.
Yeah. So he argues that it's just like a different relationship with the audience.
Yeah. Okay.
Like you're kind of allowing them you're opening space for them to apply critical thinking to the story.
Oh, okay.
Because you're distancing away from the narrative, you're like acknowledging that this is just a presentation sort of a thing. And then you can apply these principles within the story to your life, like in a more kind of applicable way. Yeah. Or just like concrete way. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
As opposed to like the argument is that catharsis is just like surface level and doesn't actually teach you anything. Like it just passes through you and then you kind of digest it and it leaves you. Like you don't actually learn anything from it is the argument. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So Do the Right Thing, Brecht.
Yeah. So I guess applying Brecht to this film, like the way the breaking the fourth wall with like the stereotype, like kind of monologue stuff, like that is Brecht. Yeah. And then like the dancing number in the beginning is would be considered like an element of Brecht, like because he would use music and like in different ways and stuff like that. And just like the whole presentation of the world to me feels like it's a stage.
Yeah.
Kind of like the way it's shot and everything, the way the camera moves, like it feels like it's on a giant like stage thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it does feel like a backlot in a way.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is really cool to make like the environment so alive. And it feels like even more alive than like a backlot is too. Like it definitely feels lived in and real and everything. Right. And did they shoot on location?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sweet. Then there you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's pretty great.
It is pretty sweet. And I know I was joking about like all these movies make you feel good and everything like that. Now we kind of get into the raw thing where, you know, I think what we'll kind of find as we think about what connects these movies is there is like this raw ending, this kind of like hitting reality. Yeah. Like at a certain point, something's got to give.
Yeah.
And
like the movie, something's got to give.
I know, exactly. See what I did there?
It's a quote from a movie.
The one you just did?
Yeah.
Well, I made a quote from... I did the quote, though. You can't say a movie did the quote. I did the quote. So the movie, it eventually hits a point where where things get real. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the promise of the premise a little bit is that the stove is heating up, you know, like eventually something breaks.
Right. And
I think as we kind of talk about some of these things, there is that kind of like in the end, and especially with all these like, it's raw and it doesn't, there aren't any happy endings. And I think that's also just a true thing to life as well. It's kind of how you look at it because eventually everything does end and everyone does die, and things don't happen the way you wish that they could.
Right.
Yeah. Which movies can do whatever they want. Why do they have to make sad movies?
Yeah.
Why are we making sad movies?
I don't know. I like it.
Yeah, you like it? Okay.
I want to feel something.
I want to feel.
I don't know. I like a movie that does everything.
I agree.
And I feel like most of these movies do a lot of that. Like showing humanity, but also showing the kind of like horrors that come along with it too.
Yeah.
Because all of these movies, I feel like, are trying in some ways to comment on society in big epic ways or small intimate ways. Like it's always targeting certain structures within our life, where this one is targeting systemic racism and like I guess you could say representation in a way with like the pictures on the wall and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, and it's I feel like these sorts of dialectics can be applied to any community. I feel like with where like racial kind of hatred and conflict can arise out of like economic strife and stuff like that. Yeah. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what Spike Lee does so brilliantly is like portray these ideas in kind of absurdist movies, you know?
He makes it very easy to digest it and to fall into it.
Yeah.
Like you love the energy pulls you in.
Yeah. Like you're still entertained.
Oh yeah.
And then you're kind of caught off guard, but in a good way, because in the way that it would affect you in real life, kind of like, oh shit, like I wasn't expecting it. Because in kind of like a pandering movie, like in a movie that would do this to pander, you would kind of feel that like thing in the forefront of the whole movie, I feel like. Whereas this one is like kind of intentional with where it's placed and how it presents it, and it never is like they don't make it a point of like the police versus these kids ever throughout the movie, like heavily, like there are moments, but it's not like a point of contention throughout the film, it just
is a fact.
Yeah, exactly. It just kind of like happens within the world kind of a thing. Which is why it's so like real and honest.
And why it still is so big to this day. I think it's constantly referenced. I know it was something I watched in film school. It's a big touchstone. Something to look at, something to understand. It's another one of those really great films that you can, the ones that are like really do a lot with the medium of film, and you can point it out and say, like Wes Anderson obviously does that too. Like where it's like really clear style. Really clear. This is a style. Quentin Tarantino has a clear style. And so on. And so it's Spike Lee definitely has a clear style, especially in all of his old like earliest stuff.
Yeah, because we saw She's Gotta Have It.
Exactly. Yeah,
which is close to this.
Yeah. And definitely you feel the energy, and you feel. I Do the Right Thing perfects what you saw was forming in She's Gotta Have It.
For
like
sure.
you get the energy of it, but then Do the Right Thing. I mean, it's perfect in a lot of ways, right? It does it so well.
For sure, yeah. This is like the SF State Citizen Kane. Like every class shows this movie.
Oh.
Like it's kind of the Bible, so to speak.
Oh, okay.
Because it's like hitting on a lot of the concepts that like they like teaching at State. So
there we go.
Yeah,
it's one of those movies.
It's one of those movies, and yeah, I threw it in my top 10 because.
Well, your personal top 10?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because I was like, this is just that version of the movie perfected.
Yeah.
If you're trying to make a political film, I feel like that's the perfect film.
It feels so nice to call a movie perfect.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, they're perfect can mean so many different things in a way when you really break it down. But there is a point where a movie does all the things right.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it wasn't the way they intended or whatever or what, but the parts fell into place.
Yeah.
And it just does it all good. I argue Back to the Future does that sort of thing.
Sure.
And there's a number of movies that are just like, it does what it does. And Indiana Jones, like,
Sure.
and I'm thinking of movies that I loved as a kid. They are great. But
you could say they do the right thing.
And that's a wrap, folks. We'll see you next time. Let's move on to our next film. In Z, the political thriller film directed by Costa Gavras.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once again, very exciting. It felt, I guess, another interesting. Yeah, I guess we're going from like one high energy movie to the other. This was another, and I guess it's in that classic thriller thing. That is what makes a thriller, is that it's driving. Mm-hmm. I think that Kevin felt it was a comedy.
I did not. Yeah, I thought. Yeah, I just had thought it was hilarious. I thought it was a political satire the whole time.
Oh my god, that is so funny. And I'm trying to. Any of you that have watched it, are you guys on my side here? Like, it felt depressing in a lot of ways, and very much like, I don't know, but maybe I just was like very literal with it and thinking about the plot a lot. Like, it just felt like,
yeah,
we can never get the dream we want.
Yeah, I got that, but I felt like it was kind of making fun of it. I don't know. I thought it was like commentary.
Yeah.
I thought the characters were like aware of what was happening.
There's no way.
I don't know.
I hate to push back, and I'm really lost on that. But you know what? I'm saying all this out loud, and the point of the podcast is to acknowledge and respect. And I'm just gonna say that's cool, Kevin. That's awesome. That's a really cool perspective. It makes sense.
I don't know why either.
I know. I want to ask you why, but I'm not looking to put you on the spot.
No, yeah.
Name all these scenes, but
I guess
it's just interesting.
Yeah, just like fuck. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe my perception of like French humor and stuff.
You said that off pod, and I think that's probably the closest thing that I can also is like, I also have a weird understanding of the more we've watched French films, is like kind of just gaining this understanding of how, and I'm going to steal your words that you said, but it's just kind of ingrained in everything.
Yeah.
Like, there is like an inherent like
they can't help
self-deprecation, I guess, or they're just, they just can't,
self-awareness too, I think. Yeah, like self-deprecation too, I guess, plays into that.
A little bit.
Yeah, I felt like the whole thing was commenting on itself in an interesting way. Like, I just thought a lot of the kind of bureaucratic conversations and like things that were happening between like politicians and stuff, like, felt like overplayed in an intentional way, to where it's like commenting on how corrupt society is, if that makes sense.
So were you like reacting strongly to, like, let's say the police officer, like the head of police, like the fact that he was like very expressive, and is that what you're talking? Like, does it feel like the actors are kind of like plussing their performance a little bit?
Maybe that's part of it. I guess more so the words and dialogue. I don't know. Maybe it's a combination of the two, like performance and the words.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, there was just something in the way like these conversations were being had where I'm like, that feels ironic to be that like self-aware of what you're doing. You know what I mean? I don't know. I can't remember exactly the situations, but it just felt like kind of funny and like nonsensical sometimes.
Yeah.
In the way maybe like French films are, but I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I read it wrong, or
there's no reading it wrong. It's just reading it different.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to watch it again to see where, like, you know, my thinking with that came from. So.
That's very interesting. I want to ask, I want to say more, but I have no more. It was cool to see to bring it back to like some of the aspects I I saw about the political thriller thing. It was cool to see this kind of like investigative journalism that was also kind of happening by the state or whatever like that. And to see all the power structures that fight against the truth being fully exposed because it will hurt. They were worried about the person who died becoming a martyr. So they're like, solve it fast.
Yeah. Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like the procedural type of shit where they're like discussing what they're doing. And I'm like, that's absurd. Like, why would you even like say that kind of stuff?
Really?
That stuff is funny to me. I don't know.
Okay.
Like, what the fuck? That's crazy.
Yeah.
That people actually have those conversations.
But I feel like it felt like conversations, and maybe the world is absurd, but it felt like the kind of conversations that do have, like...
I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I see the world as satire.
Yeah.
Personally, just like today.
You still laugh at it.
Yeah. So I think maybe that's why I'm like, I can't believe people... Cause that just seems like a conversation a movie villain would have. You know what I mean?
You mean. Yeah, a Bond villain.
Yeah, like it doesn't seem real. Like you're telling me this is real life. I think that's hilarious. Like no way. You know.
Oh, I know. I know more than I knew before. Nice. So Z, very cool.
Yeah.
Also, a real bummer ending. Oh man, like.
Yeah.
Major bummer, but also just felt like the way it would end in real life too, which also...
Yeah, it definitely reminds you of America, right?
Yeah.
In all the worst ways.
It's a bummer. But yeah, anything else you want to add on Z?
I just have a note in my review.
Yeah.
Back in the day, editing was an art form. A cut used to matter to people.
So are you saying that the editing in this was
amazing?
It was so good. I agree. Yeah, it was
every
really
cut
good.
Felt like a slap to the face where you're just like,
they happened so fast. Often it just caught you. Yeah. There was one shot that like happened. It felt like it was a mistake. Like it was like maybe less than a second of like a guard or something. Like it was so weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and it's also one of those things where a thriller needs good editing.
Yeah.
You need to have this driving thing. And not only was it abrupt and the slap in the face style, but it also was so good at knowing when, like, in the really heavy political violence scenes, knowing exactly what needs to happen. And I'll say in a very come and see sort of way, the violence felt really real, and the police present and what was happening in there felt, obviously the hitting people on the head was kind of silly.
Those scenes, that scene in particular with all those people, that shit was insane.
Yeah.
Like those were all extras.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And they actually had to direct all that shit.
And you could just feel
the energy.
The energy. It was scary. It reminded me a little bit of Metropolis, them all like looking at whatever her name is when she's taken over, when the robot is the person. And they're kind of like all like heavy breathing and staring.
And it's like building.
Yeah, I always think about the crazy energy of that. And this had that, just like wild animals, like wolves around prey.
Crazy.
Yeah.
For a political film. Yeah.
Yeah. Just really cool.
So charged.
Yeah. And it's also nice. I just feel like it's nice to see like an interesting left-wing perspective on the film, and definitely a left-wing look at power structures. And obviously that's fairly that's more common in film, but you don't feel like you get, I feel like in America, films about serious left-wing movements that kind of play it this way. I would have a hard time seeing them making a movie like this in America about similar events without it being more sanitized. But, obviously there
is Chicago Trial.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Chicago Trial movie, I think was kind of
sanitized.
Silly. Yeah. Is there a Fred Hampton movie?
Yeah.
I think there was.
Yeah.
That was the Black Messiah, Judas and the Black Messiah, right? I don't know if that was good, but because I don't know if it really focused on Fred Hampton, but it doesn't need to, I don't know, but I mean, Fred Hampton is a perfect thing that fits this.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's some correlation there.
Yeah.
About like
that era.
Yeah. About, the late 60s, which this obviously comes out of. It feels perfect for the time. It captures the energy of the time.
I want to do a student strike movie.
Yeah.
The 1968 student strike.
Yeah.
But I don't know yet how to figure that out.
Yeah.
So this film is super inspirational.
Yeah.
In terms of like capturing that kind of craziness and chaos and energy and like revolt and like the way they follow them through the crowd and stuff. Like, like you said, like predators hunting prey.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff.
It's very animalistic.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Right on. Next up.
Sweet.
Rocco and His Brothers. 1960 drama film directed by Luchino Visconti. Interesting and sad, and every feeling under the sun you will feel in this. It has the epicness of The Godfather mixed in with Raging Bull. I'm not surprised by that even a little bit.
He cites this movie.
Oh my God! Well, then I knew it. And obviously, it's got the Raging Bull element too. I think boxing is just such a cool, and you could just see so many images in this, like directly influencing Raging Bull. Absolutely,
for sure.
Like, I'd be curious how many like boxing dramas there probably were, because I think The Boxer is probably. It's been in film for a while, I imagine. It is such a great
Charlie
character.
Chaplin.
Yeah. Oh, true. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. It's definitely different than what I was about to say. But yes, he also does the hilarious boxing in City Lights.
Yeah.
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 But,
yeah.
But I think and maybe Raging Bull, well, I mean, maybe it was this film that popularized kind of the tragic boxer.
Yeah.
And the tragic fighter.
I see, yeah.
And I think it's a beautiful analogy and style, and another film in the same vein as All About Eve, of like the next rising star to come in. And what if that was your brother? And not only that, what if your brother fell in love with your old lover?
Bro.
And then you are so unbelievably insecure, and what that leads to, and just absolutely terrible. Terrible.
I can't even fucking talk about it, dude.
Yeah, and a movie that was censored, multiple scenes taken out because it was willing to go there with some of these things. And I think this movie was seen without those scenes is crazy. Like the murder scene, that the movie was shown originally without, well, actually, it was shown originally with it, but then in order to get a wide release or whatever after, it was taken out.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, because that scene alone was beautiful and terrifying, and obviously had a lot of religious imagery to it, with the way she held her arms out, and the stabbing of like a trusted
Caesar.
Yeah. It had all of those things wrapped into one, and it was just such an amazing scene at the bank of the river, and just walking with that knife. And he, what is that actor's name? Who plays the
Renato Salvatore?
Is that the one who's also in Z?
Is it?
Oh yeah, because that's Simone. Yes. Simone, I think, is actually how it was pronounced in the movie.
Yeah.
He is so good. And I loved him in Z as well. And just is so good at, like, he looks like a brute a little bit. He's got that figure. He's very blocky, but it's so tragic. But you feel like he has a switch, and his strings are being pulled by everyone else. Like, cause everyone knows how weak he is, how quick he is to, want to use violence to solve things, and how self-conscious he is.
Right.
And then they use that to, like, turn him on his brother, and no one even thinks he's going to go as far as he's willing to go.
Yeah.
And it's just so ugly. It's what happens when you open Pandora's box of violence. Where does it stop?
Yeah.
And then it eventually leads to, this family tearing itself apart.
Yeah. I mean, I can't believe Rocco, Alain Delon's character, is still writing for his family like that. Like, takes the fall for the murder.
Isn't that crazy?
Like, I just, yeah, wow.
But it feels like you could, like, sometimes we say that and it's like, oh, I can't believe they did that. But in this instance, it's like, that's when you know it's a good movie, is when you're like talking about the character's choices, not the writer's choices.
Yeah.
It's just like, I totally understand why he did it.
Yeah.
But God,
like,
damn.
Fuck.
And it's also like one of those things where it was like the perfect opportunity to finally heal.
Yeah.
Like, and finally move on.
Like, could have easily done better for himself.
But, and it makes sense because for a while, I didn't understand why the movie was about Rocco, why it was called Rocco and his brothers.
Yeah.
Because it does a really cool thing where it kind of like sets the scene of like, this is the brother we're going to kind of like start this scene on.
The chapters.
It's going to make a little sense with the brother, but it does start to kind of bleed towards what the main plot is going to be.
It was a really interesting construction.
It was. Yeah. I always love when they're like, oh, let's tell it a little different. And I always like chapters. I like the tableau style with Vivre sa vie and everything like that. I always appreciate that.
It's very writerly.
Yeah. I like thinking about things in breaks like that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so for a while I was like, why is this about Rocco? Like, I don't understand. And then it starts to, after Simone's segment, you really start to see, because I was like, this is a movie about him. This is totally like, I'm trying to understand.
For the first half, it's like his movie.
Because Rocco still doesn't even have that many lines by this point. Yeah. It's like at a certain point, he's
introduced like third.
Yeah, exactly. It felt so weird, and he's not even the last brother to be talked about. Yeah. You know, it did feel, it was weird, and I was trying to understand. I know I'm just bringing this up, but do you have any thoughts why they did that?
I feel like, I don't know. Maybe he's at the center of it all. I don't know.
I mean, definitely by the end, right?
Yeah.
And maybe, I mean, it's obviously the filmmakers know what's going to happen at the end. So it just makes sense that that's the brother. But I guess also, like, why make, like, kind of like tableaus or chapters about brothers? Like, each one, like, what do you think is the importance of that?
I have no idea. Yeah. I mean, I know the title was based on these two other pieces of literature that he kind of combined together.
Oh, really?
In terms of like the significance within the story, I'm not really sure, because I was like curious his placement within the, like, where he's introduced, and then like he's not even the first or second or last like brother introduced. And there's like 5 of them. It's, you know, and they really go into each one. I thought it was an interesting portrayal. Also, just like, I guess showing the impacts of a family unit, like how a family unit kind of moves together, I guess. Yeah. And how like tragedy is a collective experience more so than an individual one. I thought that was like, as frustrated I was with Rocco's decision in doing that, I kind of have to commend him for taking responsibility for his family, which I feel like, you know, as an American, I feel like that's not something that happens very often. Yeah. And just in general, I guess. I feel like that is a very, like, mostly in, you know, a lot of Asian cultures, like, in the law, the family is the smallest unit of government. Yeah. Like, they will sue the family, you know, if you do something wrong. Yeah. So, like, having that kind of mindset, you know, culturally, where like you kind of have to look out for everyone, no matter what they do, no matter if they wrong you yourself, you still have to like stick up for them. And kind of going back to the marriage story and scenes in the marriage, like, conversation where it's like, at what point do I forgive this person? Or, you know, like, how much love do I reserve for this person? Do I forgive them for all the faults that include hurting me? Mm-hmm. You know, like, at what point do we separate? At what point do we keep this thing going? And I thought this movie was like very strongly about family, you know, and like keeping everything tied together, and how like if one thing happens to one brother, everyone's kind of affected by it in a lot of ways. Like, just seeing each of their reactions to like this progression of this Simone character, you know, is like kind of the basis of the thing. Yeah. And I feel like Rocco's sacrifice is like, he's like the Jesus character, you know? He's kind of like the person who just does what is right, like doing the right thing, you know? He's kind of that character for this story, yeah.
Yeah, because he kind of stumbles into... He didn't
want to do boxing.
He didn't want to do boxing. He didn't want to fall in love with Annie Girardot's character.
Right.
Like, all of these things ended up Rocky. Yeah. Gerardo. No one's here to correct us if either of us is right. Yeah. Yeah. You see that, folks? You see that? That's what we're dealing with on this podcast. And just kind of stumbles into it, which is why Rocco like doesn't feel like a main character at the beginning, and then it is kind of an amazing thing to have that end up being the lead in the end and the anchor, and everything. Great. Well, let's talk about the last and final of the four.
Yeah.
The one that breaks every bone in my body when I watch it and just worries me, fills me with the deepest anxieties and stresses, and wishes that every time I watch it for it to end differently. That's always a beautiful and insane thing, that a movie can still grip you, and you can. There's always like a little part of me that thinks it's going to end a little different, and then I imagine like, what if it did? And like how insane I would think the universe was breaking.
Yeah.
But there still is like a part of me that's like, oh, come on, please, no. I've already seen this dimension. Let's try it different. But now to say the name, it is, like I said earlier, A Woman Under the Influence, 1974 American drama film written and directed by John Cassavetes, starring Gina Rowland and Peter Falk. Obviously, this is on your top 4 still, or where is it in your tippity top of the movies?
Yeah, this was in my top 4. Now it's in like top like 50.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is not, I didn't check to say, we're not trying to be like, it's worse and we saw it before, but
no,
I didn't know Kevin put it lower.
yeah. I just, it's depressing. It's a depressing movie, and it's hard to watch over and over again. And, not that it's not good, but I think, I have other movies that have just moved up.
And there's a ritual for you of watching a movie multiple times. It feels like that is a big part of your movie watching experience. I've never met anyone quite like you. Cool. It is amazing.
Yeah, and so whenever I rewatch A Woman Under the Influence, I have a hard time watching it for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to like keep it high because I don't watch it very often. I guess. Yeah.
And obviously, we've talked about this film before, so we have kind of like. But
it's amazing.
It is really crazy and amazing, and I think it makes sense for us to talk about Gina Rowland. Did die recently, and there was a lot of people sharing a lot of clips from this, and it was nice to see that she got the love that she deserved, and a lot of people recognizing how important specifically the performance in this film is. And I remember watching it for the first time and really worried that they were filming something that shouldn't have been filmed, like an actual mental breakdown on screen. Damn. Because it was done so well and so surprising. And I think that always is what makes a movie feel real, is when you're surprised by like those little things about, like if you saw that in person, you'd be like, like just changing it just a bit, and she found it, like that tinge of something, and you could just feel the actual worry in Peter Falk's voice. Like Peter Falk knew when to meet that energy, and I think a lot about, obviously, a lot of people, the fireplace scene is kind of what a lot of people talk about, and the therapist or whoever like really trying to calm her down. But I think a lot about that dinner scene at the table with all of Peter Falk's coworkers, and there's just something weird and off about the whole thing, and it's crazy.
You got kids?
Yeah. And obviously you wonder if there's like something mental going on, or like how Gina Rowlands is playing this character. Like, what is the thing?
Yeah.
But then, so you, like sometimes my mind, I'll go down that route, and I worry for how the other characters are treating her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it was just, and then you just are like, Peter, be nicer.
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing this?
Her.
Yeah, please stop. It's really shitty. Like, you're also have so many problems, and you've captured this woman in a way.
Right.
And that's so unhealthy for her and her mental state. And that's certainly, I imagine, part of this. Yeah,
it does feel like some sort of castration of a person.
Like lobotomizing someone through
whatever.
And
because when they don't really show that on screen.
No,
when she goes to the hospital. They just show her change. Like, black and white kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really haunting because you see this kind of ghost.
Kind of. Ooh, that's a good way to think of it. Ghost.
Her one at the end. It's pretty. This is a movie that I still haven't really processed. Like, still need a couple.
I mean, how do you finish processing it? You know,
I still don't get it. It's just like so heavy and strong and.
It's insane that it exists.
I mean,
that's when you know it's a good top 250. It's when it's like, how?
So Cassavetes is like one of my favorite directors.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like when I was introduced to cinema, really got into him early on.
Mm-hmm.
There's this book called about the new wave kind of movement across the world, and he's kind of credited as like the American new wave director, I want to say. And so A Woman Under the Influence is kind of his big, like, claim to fame type film.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like his, considered his biggest hit, I would say. Nominated for Best Director.
Oh, wow.
She was nominated for Best Actress. And I think it was his only nom.
Yeah.
And, dude, he fought tooth and nail for this film. Like, studio said no, and he just produced it on his own dime with like friends' help. And there's like stories of Jenna cooking spaghetti for the crew and shit, and like them just like hanging out, or shooting and then hanging out and all that stuff. And it was like a family affair. Nick Cassavetes was...
Yeah, he was in it.
Yeah, well, yeah, he was in it, and he was like obviously involved in like John having to distribute it himself. Like John would call theaters and ask them to screen this thing. And that's how it got big, was like he put it into theaters himself, and that shit would sell out. And that's how it got like traction. Like,
that's so interesting. Yeah, I imagine there are interviews where John Cassavetes talks about this, but I want to hear what his glowing praise for this is. And it, like, what is the magic that he saw in it? I mean, I think we're all seeing it, but
he just wanted to capture real life as it is, kind of a thing. Like, that was always his prerogative. He was like, filmmaking is a exercise in love. It's just like showing real relationships, real like people, like interacting. Like, that was always his kind of MO. Just in general, whenever he kind of talks about his films and stuff. And with this was like inspired by Jenna Rowlands. Like, she kind of pitched an idea of like a film about, or just a story about a housewife like struggling against the modern kind of issues within that. And that's why like the studio said, no one wants to see a middle-aged Dame.
My eyes.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah, like, that's crazy. And
think about all the movies that don't get made from really stupid stuff like that. It's infuriating.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the independent space, it's for sure no one wants to see, according to studios, no one wants to see real people on screen, which is very much not true according to most box office numbers.
Yeah.
So people want to see these stories and Cassavetes has long been like a proponent of that. Yeah.
Well,
mentored Scorsese.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, and this is interesting. It came out in 1974. There's a lot of really great films that are coming out around this time, especially Martin Scorsese was coming out with films in this time as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So
we have 4 movies shuffled from random.
Yeah. What's your connection?
I mean,
kind of said it. Yeah.
I did kind of say it. I'm trying to see if I can pull out any more. They all have a driving force of humanity. Oh, I feel like I say this every time, though. I feel like I'm saying, but maybe that's just this is just an exercise to be reminded again what a movie is.
Yeah.
And what a good movie is.
Yeah.
I don't want to use that as a cop-out here, but it feels... obviously, they all end in a very, you could argue, realistic way of just like, these are the facts.
It's tragic.
And you can't escape the facts. It's tragic.
Tragic realism.
Yeah. I all of these fit in that boat for me.
Yeah.
And they all made me feel pretty sad at the end. But the ride was also sad in a lot of cases, but also...
but showing, like you said, like humanity in all its complexities. I think each of these films, like the good, the bad, the funny, the tragic, like it's kind of giving you everything.
Yeah. It feels like it has everything you could want from any movie.
Yeah.
Are in these 4 for sure.
For sure. Yeah, definitely the most like frustrating bunch, I think, just in that way, like really challenging us in terms of like what reality is and can be.
Yeah.
Like I think we kind of safeguard ourselves within like escapism sometimes with film. So like when a filmmaker, and maybe that's like a theme within 250, right? Is like when a filmmaker confronts reality in like tragic and just confrontational ways, I guess. Just like laying it all on the line kind of thing, like really putting it out there. I feel like that's where people gravitate to that the most, like the authenticity of this life experience.
Yeah, all of these felt authentic.
Yeah to like the specific, all these very specific experiences too. Like
like Marcel the Shell with shoes on.
Yeah, super specific,
felt very relatable. I love bringing that one up.
You're rage baiting.
I am. I'm bait raging.
Yeah. I mean, I get it.
Yeah, we're not getting into that. It was, I don't want to get into it.
Dude, I listened back to that episode. I was like, man, I got really amped up in that one.
Yeah. I mean, you were amped up before. I don't remember on the pod you being that amped. At least it didn't feel to me, but
I feel like I received it as like getting kind of
I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
But
because I feel passionate about that kind of stuff.
That's how I take it. Like, and because you're not dishing out negativity.
Yeah.
With what you're saying, especially you're not like attacking me for what I'm saying.
Sure.
That's what I think. That it never comes across like that to me.
Okay, cool.
Do you see where we build each other up on this podcast?
Pat on the back.
Yeah, you got it. Right on. Well, this is going to end happier than these films ended.
Yeah.
We're smiling.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to add, or
I don't know.
You want to ride off into the sunset?
Should we hit the shuffle button now, live?
No, because it'll be weeks and weeks before people even you'll learn, folks. It's our little secret. Wait till the first of the month when I announce what is next for the month.
Yeah.
All right, folks. It's been a pleasure.
Good night and goodbye.
Good night. Good luck. Goodbye.
See you
That's
later.
we were both drunk. Bye, folks. That's a wrap. Bye. Wind Reel and Print is a podcast by Salad Brain Productions. You can find us online on Instagram at Wind Reel and Print Pod. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts. And please, if you like the show, leave a rating and review. We'll see you next time.